Hari Radha Madhava Radhe Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivandadari Gopi Chanda Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivandadari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Yashoda Nandana Braja Chandaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Chandaranjana Yamuna Tira Vandachari Yamuna Tira Vandachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Śrī Kṛṣṇa Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhar Śrī Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Nanti Koti Vaishnavinda ki, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu ki, Gaur Premanande, Haribol. Prabhu, is that time right? Or is it fast? 5 fast, okay, so my clock is right here. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, Hare Krishna. Today we're speaking about Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 14, text 45. And this is the chapter entitled Performance of Vrindavan Pastimes. Kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. kāṅgālera bhojana-raṅga, dekhe gaurahari. hari-bola, bali, tāre, upadeśa, kari. Mataji's. A bit hard to read? Okay. Acha. Okay. kāṅgālera, of the beggars. bhojana-raṅga, process of eating. dekhe, sees. gaurahari, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Hari-bola bali. Chanting Haribol. Tāre, them. Upadeśa, kari. Instructs. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki. Observing the beggars eating prasādam, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu chanted Haribol and instructed them to chant the holy name. Purport. In a song, Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura chants, miche māyāra vaśe, yache beshe, khache, habu dhubu bhai, jive kṛṣṇa-dāsa e vishvas, karle tāre dukanai. O people, why are you being captivated by the waves of the ocean of nescience? If you would immediately accept Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa as your eternal master, there would be no chance of being carried away by the waves of illusion. Then all your sufferings would stop. Krishna conducts the material world under the three modes of material nature, and consequently there are three platforms of life, higher, middle, and lower. On whatever platform one may be situated, one is tossed by the waves of material nature. Someone may be rich, someone may be middle class, and someone may be a poor beggar. It doesn't matter. As long as one is under the spell of the three modes of material nature, he must continue to experience these divisions. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu therefore advised the beggars to chant Haribol while taking prasādam. Chanting means accepting oneself as the eternal servant of Krishna. This is the only solution, regardless of social position. This is the only solution, regardless of social position. Everyone is suffering under the spell of Maya. Therefore, the best course is to learn how to get out of the clutches of Maya. How to do so is stated by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya itan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. One can overcome the spell of Maya and attain the transcendental platform by agreeing to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtanam. Therefore, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu advised the beggars to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for elevation to the transcendental position. On the transcendental platform, there is no distinction between the rich, the middle class, and the poor. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Śrī Caitanya Manovishtam Sthapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayang Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishtavangscha Shri Rupang Sagrajatang Sahagana Raghunatam Pitam Tang Sajivam Sattvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dino Bando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vangshakalpa Turbhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasade Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Observing the beggars eating prasādam, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu chanted Haribol and instructed them to chant the holy names. So, one of the many things which stand out in this verse for me is one thing that can be applied in two ways, which is one way that it can be applied is in preaching, and another way is applied into us becoming Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada, he starts here by mentioning these three modes of nature, this sattva, raja, tamagun, that everybody is subjected to in different amounts, and that regardless of the status one has acquired, according to the modes, which just externally reflect as piety and impiety, they're all getting tossed around by these waves. So it's said that what facility one has will not affect your life at the time of suffering. For example, there might be a very wealthy man and he has got a toilet made of gold. And one might be very envious of this, thinking what opulence he has, how wonderful it might be to do your business there. But when the time comes when you've eaten too much during the monsoon season and you have dysentery, that toilet, the golden toilet, will not make a difference to your suffering at all. So in this way, we're pursuing all these different things, thinking that this will solve our problem. Only if I had this, or only if I had that, then my life would be better. If only I could earn a little bit more money, just a little bit, I don't want much, just a little, just 5,000 rupees a month more, it would make so much of a difference. I would be relieved of so much. If only my son listened to me 20% of the time, my life would be so much better, you know? If only, it's as if you have written a script and people are not following that script. We become very upset. It's like, didn't you learn your lines? You were not supposed to say this, you're supposed to say that. So, this way we're making up all kinds of mental concoctions of trying to be happy. So, one time one reporter in the States said, Srila Prabhupada, you know, why have you come to the United States? You know, what do you want? Because before Prabhupada, some yogis and renunciates had come to the United States, but clearly they were there to take. They were there to receive something, to utilize the situation for their own profit somehow or other. And Prabhupada had said that, essentially said, like, you don't have anything that I want, but I've not come to take, I have come to give. I've come to teach you how to be happy, because you do not know how to be happy, and I've come to teach you how to be happy. And so the disease of Western civilization, which means global civilization, because it's all pervasive. We think like, okay, the West is over there, we're here in the East. It's like, that's West, that's East. No, it's here too. I mean, you just look out the window and you can see, you know, this construction of all this concrete is a symptom of that. So, when we say Western civilization, it means us. We should understand us. Even if we're not born in the West, we're all conditioned by that mentality of being conditioned to an artificial standard of sense gratification. So we expecting that life should supply a certain level of enjoyment which is disconnected from reality. The reality is that life does not provide that in this body, in this planet. Other planets is another thing. So Prabhupada actually says, with regards to raising children, he said, making a child accustomed to an artificial standard of sense gratification is the greatest violence. Because his whole life you set up for suffering only. Because he has an expectation that cannot be met. And if I just look at my own life, I can understand the effect of that my mind is constantly agitated by expecting things to come which do not come. And I get frustrated because they don't come, because that is not how this world works. It's not how this planet is designed. This planet is a tapaloka. Two types of planets there are, bhogaloka and tapaloka. Tapaloka is meant for austerities, meant for work. You're supposed to work hard on this planet. You cannot avoid it. Some effort, some struggle must be there. The bhogalokas is like the swarga in the heaven, or we have the bhumi swarga, which are other areas of earth which are inaccessible to us currently, which are heavenly realms of earth, and we get the Bilva Swarga, which are the imitation heavens which exist in the subterranean realms, where they have perfected medicine, free energy, clean energy, no pollution, right? Their medicines can even prolong aging or delay the onset of aging. And these people can enjoy almost unlimitedly, even to a degree which is higher than in the Swargalokas planet, it said. But of course, there in the collective consciousness, the idea of God does not exist. They've essentially killed God in their collective consciousness. But they're still baffled by death. When death comes in an invisible form of the Lord, cutting them down, they cannot understand how to solve this problem. So there's also Bhogaloka. So if one is not satisfied with the enjoyment here, one can decide to do that, and there's many paths one can take to accomplish that. Of course, it involves worshipping of certain deities, and especially like devas, and depending on the mode of nature you're on, you'll be attracted to a certain mode of worship. But then Krishna says that people who take to this path, they're considered less intelligent, because you'll have to come back here again and repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, cannot avoid it. So those who are a bit more thoughtful think why I should be involved in this process, how to get out of this process, and why do I need to suffer so much? So in this world, we cannot avoid struggle, but we have a choice. To which end are we going to struggle? And if you do not make the choice will be made for you. There are hundreds of corporations waiting to make the choice for you. Buy Coca-Cola. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Or maybe a certain type of club where you can go, where certain types of degraded activities take place of various levels. You can choose which one you slot into. Which flavor of sinful life would you like, essentially. So they're very happy to make the decision for you. So an idle mind is a devil's playground. So if you've not made the choice, then you're just a puppet. You become that. So, so we, as aspiring Vaishnavas, we have made the choice to attempt to turn our face towards the Lord again. And as we know, the 9 processes of bhakti, starting with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, is especially the Shravanam aspect here is highlighted. It said that spiritual life starts with hearing. Actually, the sound vibration being the most subtle of the objects of the senses, they are also most powerful in awakening us. In fact, when Lord Brahma creates the universe, not Lord Brahma, actually, when Vishnu is manifesting the ingredients for Brahma to create with, the first element to manifest is ether, Akash. And the sole purpose of Akash is so that there's a medium of which sound can travel through. So sound does not just mean this vibration that you're hearing between 50 and 15,000 hertz. Sound means information. It's a wave, it carries information. So this is what you're hearing is gross sound, and hopefully also there is transcendental sound also coming through my voice right now. So particularly this is more of interest. So, and through this, Lord Brahma was also able to receive instructions. He was able to do a meditation and perfect himself and then create the universe. So like a sleeping person, when you are sleeping, oftentimes, I've experienced this many times, I'm sure many of you have also, when you're sleeping, having a dream, you can hear sounds from outside in the physical world. Like I've had many dreams where I'm sleeping and my alarm goes off, beep, 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 and I'm in my dream and I'm thinking, what is that sound? And there's this itch about this scratch at the back of my head. I think it is important. It should mean something, but I can't put it together. I'm maybe too deep in the sleep. And then after some while I'm like, oh, it's my alarm. I'm supposed to wake up now. Or sometimes I don't even realize that and I just kind of press snooze in my sleep or something. And so the sound penetrates through the ignorance of the sleep. And in a similar way, Jeev jago, Gaura Chandrabol, is that we're sleeping and the sound vibration is what will wake us up. So now, when we start waking up and when we start realizing our great fortune of receiving this valuable jewel of the holy name and this process of Krishna consciousness and the association of devotees and a very firm connection to a whole line of acharyas who are all pure devotees, then naturally one is compelled to give it to others. And this spirit of charity starts waking up in one's heart. And then one would then attempt to give it to others. Now, the best method of doing this was personally exhibited by the Panchatattva. It says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sai Panchatattva mile prithiviyasya purva prema bandareira mudra ugradiya Panksha mile lute prema karyasvadan yate yate piye trishna bhade anukshan Puna puna piyaye haya mahamat nache kande hasiga yoiche madamat. It says that it is understood that Krishna is a storehouse of love. And when he descended, certainly that storehouse descended with him, but it was locked. When Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu descended with his associates of the Panchatattva, they broke open that storehouse and they plundered it and tasted it again and again. And the more they tasted it, the more their thirst for it grew. And dancing again and again made it easier for them to relish this. Crying, dancing, laughing like madmen and chanting like this, they relished it again and again. So this is the process for relishing Krishna consciousness, especially that dancing is mentioned. Dancing is mentioned. And when I look at like the history of ISKCON, like Śrīla Prabhupada, and up until today, I've noticed a very remarkable decline in dancing. And it's something that actually pains my heart a lot to see, because I love dancing, and when I'm dancing, I can feel the greatest ecstasy from the Sankirtan. It helps me to immerse myself into it, because all my senses are engaged that way. And there's no particular way one has to dance, as long as it's not like offensive or like aggressive. Otherwise, anything goes. And in the same method of relishing, they were in Srivas Angan first, just down the road, it was happening. And in Srivas Angan, they were relishing this chanting like this. And they had closed the door shut, because they only wanted people who want to perform this way of relishing the holy name, without any mental ideas of this or that, without any conception of self, of body, mine, and yours, and just the motivation of, I want to become the servant of the Lord only. And anything else, push it out. So, and they thoroughly relished it like that. And after doing that for some time, it just burst out into the streets. They could not contain it. And it just went out into the streets. And millions of people were attracted by the sound vibration. There's these incredible descriptions in Charitamrita of how, as they're going from village to village, you can imagine like this whole, just like jungle, just like, not just paddy fields, but, the trees, kadamba trees, and the banana trees, and all these kinds of vegetation. And it's not an easy terrain to move through either, but they were going through it. They said like 5-year-old boys were in such ecstasy, they would go and they would rip out banana trees. Can you imagine that? People were climbing up to the tops of trees and jumping out. Haribol, jumping up a tree, 5-year-old boy, this boy coming and just ripping a tree out and throwing it up just out of pure ecstasy. And then suddenly Lord Chaitanya would just disappear, and they're like, where did he go? And he just like slipped out the back, and he just went, and then somebody runs and says like, somebody saw him there, and then everybody's like running behind him, trying to like stay with him. So, and what did Lord Chaitanya do? He did not sit on the Vyasa like I'm sitting now, saying like, Krishna is Bhagavan, you are not this body. You must chant all your rounds. This is not his method of preaching. He just went out and he relished Krishna consciousness in public. And Prabhupada had said himself, he said, the best preaching is a happy devotee. Because when you are actually happy, you have something that everybody wants but nobody has. Legitimately. And do not underestimate people's ability to perceive this, because all day long everybody's thinking about that. All day long people is thinking about themselves. Naturally, conditioned souls are selfish. So when they see the thing that they want, they're thinking about it all the time. So they're going to see it immediately. They're going to see it immediately. It's like if you meditate on something you want and it's very defined, it's very easy to find that thing. Like if you want to find a wife, you should actually write down like a long list of characteristics which you wish to have. So then you will know it when you see it. Similarly, if you want to find a husband, then you'll know what you want, what you don't want. But if it's just, I want a wife, it's like, okay, which one? It's like there's many to choose from. And so same thing. So in this way, we will be able to give the greatest charity to people. So this was the topic I was asked to talk about, is giving charity with spiritual care. And real charity means that we are giving to people what is actually beneficial to them. So that means giving to the soul. Giving to the soul. But at the same time, it acknowledges that the soul currently has a connection with the mind and the body. So those things cannot be neglected. Because in fact, the mind and the body are vessels through which we are supposed to realize our soul with. I mean, the whole way that Krishna has designed it, like the chakras and the body and all the nadis around it, and a certain sadhana that we follow to keep the body clean, avoiding certain foodstuffs. It is to keep the mind and body pure so that our sense of discrimination is very sharp, so that we can tell the difference between matter and spirit, that we can tell the difference between my motivation being material or spiritual, for example. It's a special quality of this human species is self-examination. It says in the 5th canto like that this species, a special feature is self-examination. Even Lord Nishingadev, he gave Prahlad the benediction, may you always be endowed with a spirit of inquiry. And in this, spend your whole life and you will attain, the Supreme Brahman. So this is a very important part of being human. And so to reflect properly, we need fine discrimination. This is the function of the buddhi. So it says that charity starts at home, that we cannot give what we do not have. So therefore, as exhibited by the Panchatattva, we should ourselves relish the process. And if we are not happy, then that is okay. But we should be able to acknowledge it and identify it, because that means there's something wrong. And we cannot continue our life thinking, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm following the 4 regs, I'm a senior devotee, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I am taking only Krishna prasādam, I don't read any books, I don't have Facebook, I read only Prabhupada's books, I do not talk to karmis, I do not associate with them, but after 25 years, you're still miserable. But no, it cannot be, because the process of Krishna consciousness makes me happy. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And then we ignoring a certain part of our reality here. But this is actually a function to tell us that there's something that needs adjustment. Something is required. Pain is a function. Pain is our friend. Pain tells us there's something wrong that requires your attention. You've bumped your toe. Now you've gotten a bad infection. The pain increases the more severe the issue becomes. You might lose your foot from gangrene. So the pain is there to say, my dear sir, you have to pay attention now. And the more we ignore it, the more it festers, the more the pain increases. So the more we ignore that part of ourselves, the more painful it will become. And then suddenly we see a devotee committing suicide and we wonder why. It is, of course, this is a generalized statement. Each individual case is different. But the principle is there, it's that we should be honest with ourselves and that it is part of life. And being Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate does not mean that you will not experience pain. Because if you kick your toe against this, it's going to hurt, no matter how transcendental you are. It's just a biological function of neurotransmitters interacting with the brain, communicating a certain impulse to the subtle mind, which is then perceived by the intelligence. This is Shankya explains how these things work. And then you experience it as what we call pain. But due to attachment of the body, we have aversion to that. But one who's not attached to the body just sees it as part of the whole synthesis of your current bodily existence. So there's no problem. You deal with it. So same goes with psychological pain. Now, therefore, one who is really trying to relish Krishna consciousness, anything that stands in between you and relishing that Krishna consciousness deserves your attention. So therefore, if I'm sitting and chanting and my throbbing toe makes me not able to focus on my japa, then I go to a doctor and I sort it out. So it's not due to bodily attachment. Okay, on the one hand, this body needs to be taken care of. It's our dharma. This body does not belong to us. Sanatana Goswami once, out of humility, was saying that I am not qualified, I'm useless, I will throw my body into the Ganga. And Lord Chaitanya says, who do you think you are to make such a decision? This body is not yours to throw away, it is mine. I have not given permission. You take care of this body. So this is the position. And on the other hand also, I want to chant japa. So let me sort my toe out so I can sit and, okay, one less thing to worry about, because there's a million other things standing between me and chanting purely. So therefore, these things which seem to be related to body and mind are actually transcendental. Going to go fix your toe is a transcendental activity for taking care of your body, knowing that you can meditate on, this is Krishna's body, I should take care of it. That's transcendental. How is it not? You're thinking of Krishna. Or thinking that, wow, my japa is going to be so much better now because I'm not going to have this throbbing toe. It's transcendental. Similarly, if you have some psychological problem or trauma, going to something like a therapist or a support group is transcendental activity. It is the same, because what is the purpose? It is to attain Krishna. It's so that you can sit down and just chant all the time. So we are thereby giving ourselves that charity. And only then can you actually go and give charity to people. Because you can go out in the streets, you can have an argument about some point of philosophy, right? And you may defeat that person. But if the spirit in which you did it is not correct, it will have no difference on that person. It says that a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, right? He might be defeated, but he's not going to change. Because it's in here. It happened. It needs to happen in here, in the heart. So people can feel that. People can feel that. When you are sitting next to somebody and they don't want anything from you, it is very remarkable. It stands out. You can see it. You can feel it. Like sometimes it feels a little awkward. When you're like with a sadhu, you feel like, because there's nothing he wants. You want to do something and give something to them, but you can't think of anything because you don't have anything he wants. He already has everything he wants. But still they accept service and they take on the service to be able to give service, to engage people. That's their kindness to us. So now in this state, then we are actually ready to give charity with spiritual care. And then we can go out in the street, and when we have an argument with a person, it can be done with the right spirit. And the correct way to give it to people is you have to tune into where that person is right now, at this point in time. And you have to take that, put Krishna in it, and you give it back to him. So he thinks he's getting nothing. It says, in like a needle and out like a plow. So infiltration, like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was so expert at this. He had in Africa some preaching, I don't know all the details, but where he had, through his preaching, he had people following the regulative principles, chanting Hare Krishna, practicing devotional service. They did not know they are Hare Krishnas. They did not know they are following, right? Because nobody wants to change. He said like, this is Hare Krishna, be this. It's like nobody wants to do that. That is an upadi anyway. But when you take people where they're at and you just in there give it to them, very expertly. Why would people not want to take it? Because you're giving them what they want. You know, this is how Krishna gets us, right? So, like from my personal experience, because I have 4 children at home, the day is chaotic and full, and so there's very little time for us to be able to go out to something like a temple. And even when we do go to the temple, you know, it's don't even get to take darshan properly. So it's not a frequent thing that happens, although we have a very good program at home, fortunately. But when I walked into the temple and I saw Lord Jagannath, I understood that he tricked me, because he knows I like to give class, and that's how he made me come to the temple and take darshan of him. So he used my motives, you know, and he purified them. And I felt very humbled, and I felt very loved by the Lord, and that he just wanted to put his gaze on me, his gaze, sorry, the glaze. He just wanted to look at me so that he could give me mercy. And so like this, he is drawing all of us in, and with that same spirit, we can draw more people into this movement, into this process of Krishna consciousness by acknowledging their needs. It's like a child. If a child, they consider things that are not important to be very important. And this is their entire life depends on this sandcastle they just built that they spent 5 minutes to do. And one sibling comes and just like nicks a little part off of it, and the whole life just stops. So a parent needs to tune into that. He knows it is illusion, but to the child it is important. So you must acknowledge the importance of it to the child, for the child. You cannot say, it's just a silly sandcastle. You can just do it, I can do it in 1 minute. Here, poof, there's another one. He doesn't want it. He just kicks it over. Don't want it. You don't understand. You don't understand. This is, you know, what do they say? A story as old as time. The son telling the father, you don't understand me. So, because we need to take the time to actually go down to their level and see, wow, this is really important to you, isn't it? You're very crushed by this thing that had happened. Then they will, after that process, then they're open to receiving from you. So with preaching, we need to do like this. We're all like spiritual children. And in this way, we can give that charity to the people. And then it will work. And another point is that I'm equating now charity with preaching. So that we cannot preach. We have no power to preach. All we can do is canvas, which means you can say, it's said that Brahmate, Kona, Bhagavan and Jiva, the Jivas are just loitering around in this universe, loitering. And the Jivas are open to suggestion, and this is how advertising works. They say, how about this? Have you tried this one? Maybe this flavor and this combination will do it for you. So that's all we can do. We can just suggest. And if we can just get a person just to look at Krishna and just for a moment consider, then Krishna will preach to him. We cannot preach. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he says like this. He says that one who thinks himself to be a reformer is he himself in need of reformation. Powerful. He was like, you know, number one preacher, right? So, because the only reformer is Krishna. This is the essence of what he's saying. And he's saying, you are not a reformer. In fact, you cannot even reform yourself. So how are you going to reform somebody else? So preaching means to reform. So I think that's a very interesting point. And it shows a little bit deeper of the heart of preaching, the heart of this transcendental charity, of how we should be doing it. And it's a very natural way. So then you don't have to be something. You can be what you are. You can rely on your natural strengths. And because you have yourself relished it, and because you are in tuned with yourself also, it enables you to tune into others. If you're not tuned with yourself, you cannot tune into others. Yeah? Because tuning into yourself, like in a kind of a yogic perspective, means that your chakras are all balanced, and the chakras are required for interconnection, like between the Manipura and the Anahata especially, right? The solar plexus and the heart. This is where interconnection happens with people and expressions of feelings, and where we feel compassion through. Now, if you're not connected to that, how it can happen? It's not possible. So it's just like a way of explaining the essentialness of being in tune with yourself. So then all of these things become transcendental, completely transcendental. They're not mundane. They're not mundane. There's this misnotion or misunderstanding that these type of things are mundane. I've heard devotees speaking about this, trying to, saying things like, your family responsibilities are mundane, or your bodily responsibilities are mundane, or you should just sacrifice self. It is like, this is not the process. And, but when one is a wholesome, balanced, happy devotee, naturally others will come. So, and then when you chant, the ecstasy will just pour out. And when others see that, they're like, what is this? What is this? Like, wow, like amazing. They cannot comprehend because he's just doing what people do in the club. But the experience is completely beyond their frame of reference. And they can feel it. And sometimes people are hesitant because it's very unknown. But it's real. It's real. People do see this. So that means you do not have to be like a powerful shastri, be able to know all the shlokas or be able to present the philosophy. So this is how Srila Prabhupada's disciples like, Shamasundar and Mukunda and Yamuna Devi, and when he sent them to Europe, how long had they been in the movement? Have they, 6 months? I was going to say not even a year. Yeah, you're right. And they accomplished what sannyasis who've been practicing for decades could not accomplish, right? So they did not have all the scriptures and arguments and this and that, but they had faith, they had taste. They had taste. Somehow Prabhupada imparted that mercy to them. They tasted it, they understood, I have to hold on to this, and they just ran with it. And look what they accomplished. So this proves that our qualification is irrelevant, because Prabhupada says here, whatever mode of nature, whatever, there's no distinction between rich, middle class, and poor. The higher, the middle, and the low. You can extend that to any attribute, beauty, intelligence, skill. Although some management skill does go a long way. But some thoughtfulness should be there. So, Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness is so simple, you might miss it. You might miss it. Krishna consciousness is not all of these things. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. And the only religious principle that actually exists is to always remember Krishna, never forget him. Everything else is a servant to that only. Everything else is a servant to that only. And if something helps you remember Krishna, do it. If something does not help you remember Krishna or it makes you forget him, don't do it. Simple. Simple for the simple. So, yes, but what about, no, same answer. Yes, but what about, no, same answer. It's yes, but, and then same answer. Whatever comes after that, same answer. But because I am not simple, so therefore it's hard for me just to imbibe that spirit, which is okay, because that's where I'm at now. And therefore I have a guru. I have many gurus. I've got association in which that can refine all of these things. That just directs my attention back to this point where I eventually just realize I should just surrender to Krishna. It says, if you would immediately accept Lord Krishna as your eternal master, there'd be no chance of being carried away by the waves of illusion. Once again, I'm by this point. I'm like, okay, it's so simple. And then I'm going to float away again, and Krishna will bring me back to this point again. But as long as I'm in the association of devotees and in the process of devotional service, I have every chance of returning to this point again and again and again. But if you do not follow the 4 regs and do the and chant Hare Krishna, then there's every chance that it might take lifetimes before you come back to this point. Because you will come back, but it might take a long time. So, but the more we come back to this point, organically, you cannot force yourself back to this point, the more chance there is of deepening your realization and strengthening your resolve to do this, like that. So it is a process, and the devotees are very kind to help remind us of this point. And in this way, we giving charity to ourselves, we're giving charity to others, and it happens simultaneously. There's no separation between the two, like that. Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, any comments or questions about?
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you mentioned that whatever comes in our way to relishing Krishna consciousness, we should...
So repeat again.
Whatever comes in our way to relish Krishna consciousness, we must pay attention to it. So sometimes it becomes distraction actually, when we pay attention to the problem, is what is coming. So how to deal with that?
How can we?
How we cannot get distracted, at the same time do the needful and then...
Do the needful. Well, there are certain things which are set in stone, which is our sadhana, that we should wake up at a certain time in the day, and we should like chant our rounds, or at least you adjust it according to your personal need, right? But the principle is we should wake up in the Brahma Muhurta time, and then we should chant at least all our rounds, ideally. But sometimes, some people have a nice system. Okay, I'll chant at least 8. If I cannot do more, I will do minimum 8. And then at this time, I'll do 4, and then I'll do 4. So they've got a plan, right? You have to have a plan. So there's certain things like that. And then, like, for example, eating regularly is also a good idea, because not just for your health, but also just for your sadhana. And then if that is set, then there will be this undertone of this remembrance of Krishna will be there. And then when you do these other things, then as long as they don't disturb that. But Prabhupada said, the priority is health, sadhana, service. So sometimes you'll need to sleep in 1.5 hours more, But if you went to bed at night at 11 because you're watching YouTube videos, then whose fault is that? So we have to be real to ourselves. Our tendency is to cheat. So we might say, oh, I'm so tired, and I have to sleep in a bit, but you neglect to remember, I was watching YouTube until 11 o'clock. It's like, okay, it was a mistake, so just try to avoid it. But otherwise, if it's a necessity, like some disease or something, or some mental anguish, or maybe just a family affair that requires your attention, then one should try to do it as far as possible without disturbing these essential elements of our sadhana. That we're still able to wake early, we're still able to keep the body clean. If you have your sankalpa is that I will at noon offer a little arti to my deities at home, that you could stick to that, these things we do. And, senior devotees, they can help to design such a daily routine for us. Because it's different for different people, our needs shift over time as well. So I think that, yes, it's good to think about not being distracted too much, because you can get too involved in something. Because at some point, you also realize that, okay, this is kind of the limit of what I'm able to do with my toe. I just have to wait it out now, right? So, like, I can take only a certain amount of painkillers in the day before it's not good. And if I'm still feeling pain, maybe I should just tolerate it. Maybe I'm supposed to, suffer that. So then I'll just chant anyway and do my best. So there should be a little bit of realistic, it should be realistic like that. You should always understand also, we're not the controllers, we do what we can, but it should not be an over-endeavor. There we go. Because that's not good for bhakti. One of the 6 things Nectar of Instruction explains, not good for bhakti, over-endeavoring. So, but that takes maturity to understand what is over-endeavor. Because sometimes laziness is disguised as, oh, no, it's over-endeavor. It's not black and white, so it is hard. So therefore, the Vaishnava association is essential. Because you're in the situation now, and it might not be clear to you, but a friend, it might be clear as daylight to him, because he's not into it, inside of that situation. And you revealing your mind and say, yeah, it's a bit of an over-endeavor, and your friend would say, Hare Baba, you're just being lazy, man, just go do it. So just cut that out. So we need that. We need those friends. We need that. And not be so proud that we're not able to receive that, because this is actually Krishna talking to you through that person. Because we're praying to Krishna for direction, And it can come like that. So it can come in many ways. It can come in the form of, it came to Prabhupada in the form of a drunk doctor who told him like, you pray too much, you should go for walks. That's where the morning walk started. Prabhupada took it. He said, that's right. So, yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, there's one more.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for excellent class. I really enjoyed it. I really like what you were saying about spiritual bypassing. Essentially, like, you know, the answer to all our problems is devotee association and chanting the Maha Mantra. But a lot of times my husband and I, we host a weekly home program, and we have lots of new people that come, and they always seem to have this issue. Well, you know, I have all these other problems, and you say that chanting the mantra will, you know, relieve me of these issues, but they have a problem with that. And that makes sense the way you explained it, that it is like it's a pain reaction. Like these are the things that we have to pay attention to in order to really fully experience our connection with Krishna. So I really appreciated that, and I will definitely be taking that back with me.
Thank you.
Krishna.
It's a nice comment. Yeah, it's interesting how, because when we're chanting, Krishna gives us the intelligence to deal with these things. So then while you're chanting, you try to connect to Krishna. I found like when you want to solve a problem, you first go to Krishna, and then when you're a little bit Krishna conscious, when you go back into the problem, you can easier see it in relation to Krishna. It's kind of like going to Krishna and going around with a rope and tying it and then just like, so is how I visualize it. So then, by going to that problem, it seems like you're just going to address it as you did before, but at the end, it's solved, and you're sitting down chanting, and you realize, wow, it was actually the chanting that just did that. It wasn't me. So the chanting did do it. Yes. But we had to participate as well. Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that point very much. Yeah. Okay. Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita ki, Śrīla Prabhupada ki.